There you go. Welcome in, Chili Water Tap Room. Hoagies and Hops, 42nd and Boulevard is where we are for another taping of Query and Schultz. I'm your host, Derek Schultz, and as you see, this is not Jake Query, a much more successful, a much more professional co-host today for Query and Schultz. You know him from The Athletic. It's Zach Keefer. And also, I think most importantly of all, I mean, we can list all of your accolades and awards and things like that, Zach, but you are a fellow Midtowner, right up here the road, a recent implant to Midtown here.
Yeah, forget more successful than Jake Query, better looking, all the things you mentioned. We can keep going.
Keep going, yeah.
I brought my daughter here a couple months ago. We love this spot at Hoagies and Hops, and we love living in Midtown, as you said. So just a couple neighborhood guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can literally, maybe I couldn't throw a baseball, but somebody who is athletic could throw a baseball from my driveway, and if you lofted it over to the Capitol side, you'd be able to hit Zach Keefer's house with his two girls as well. So fellow Midtowners, and we're talking Colts and football and Pacers and all the usual today, as Jake is still overseas in Europe. He'll be back with me coming up next week, and we'll recap that trip then. But, Zach, let's jump right into it. Colts bye week, so we don't have a game to recap, which is what we're used to doing on this show. But I think if you were scoreboard watching and you were a Colts fan on Sunday, you were probably disappointed, because if you were to kind of list out all the games and you're like, okay, I'd rather this team win, I'd rather that team win, pretty much all of those would have checked into the loss category for the Colts. They did not get any help during the bye week.
Yeah, the two teams they're really fighting for this number one seed in the AFC happen to have the longest win streaks in the NFL right now. The New England Patriots, 8-game win streak. The Denver Broncos, 8-game win streak after their win over the Chiefs on Sunday. It's going to be a dogfight, and I don't think I'm having a hot take here. I think the Colts might have the toughest stretch the rest of the way. I will hear the argument for the Denver Broncos because they have to see the Chiefs again, and then they have to see the Chargers. But, man, it's going to get real for the Colts real fast, starting this Sunday in KC.
Yeah, I mean, not a single team below 500 that's left, because you have both games against Houston, both games against Jacksonville. At Seattle, even if Seattle's not good, and they are good, that's a difficult trip. At Arrowhead with the Chiefs fighting for their season, really, I think at this point. And then San Francisco's tricky. No one talks about San Francisco. They're 7-4 to start this season as well, so no easy outs there. But, yeah, looking at the results, I mean, I think you knew that the Patriots were going to beat the Jets. I think the hope was that Kansas City was going to find a way to beat Denver, but now the AFC West is pretty much out the window for them. And, it kind of goes back to the old talk about, would you rather face a team coming off a win or coming off a loss? And I think it kind of cuts both ways, but there's something about a desperate, backs to the wall Kansas City team that I think you absolutely want no part of. Am I right?
Yes and no. I mean, I watched the game on Sunday, and this is not the same Kansas City Chiefs team. It's just not. And I've actually covered a lot of their games over the years since I left the Colts beat, because I've been covering the best team in the AFC and the Super Bowl runs of Mahomes and company. And the offense is bad. It's just not good. And I was really surprised and sort of disappointed to see that coming out of the bye. You'd think Andy Reid's team was going to figure some things out that they weren't doing well. You know, they got smacked by Buffalo. They had a bye. You think reset. They look bad against the Broncos, and Mahomes doesn't look right either, and he took all the blame, and that's what quarterbacks do. I wonder what Kansas City team we're going to get on Sunday. The other thing, Derek, is, and I was out at Kansas City Chiefs mini camp in June, just kind of talking with reporters about random things in the NFL. What is the one team Patrick Mahomes has had a lot of trouble with in the NFL? Like, he doesn't have a losing record against many teams. I think the Eagles are one. The other one is the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
And extra credit if you can name the two quarterbacks that beat him, because they were not good quarterbacks for the Colts.
Yeah, it was Brissett in the 2019. That was a primetime game, wasn't it? Sunday night game.
19-9. Marlon Mack went crazy.
And then that super weird 2022 game with Matt Ryan.
Probably the high point of the Matt Ryan era, besides the
only point,
the Las Vegas, the only
high point.
Right. So strangely, the Colts have had success against the Chiefs. That obviously doesn't matter going into Sunday. Like you said, backs against the wall, season on the line. dynasty on the line, dynasty fading for this season. I don't think they have the mystique they used to have.
Yeah, and you've seen teams that have to, not to make this show about like a macro view on the Kansas City Chiefs, but you've seen teams have to sort of reinvent themselves with these prolonged runs. Even New England. I mean, the New England teams of 03, 04, 05 were very different from the New England
two
teams.
Different dynasties.
Yeah, of 15, 16, 17, 18 in kind of the later Brady years, or even the Moss team in 2007 that ended up going 16-0. And I think while the Chiefs have made some tweaks, they've not really made a lot of wholesale changes, and maybe some wholesale changes are necessary outside of the pillars, obviously Mahomes and Reed and guys like that. But, getting back to the Colts, also division-wise, I thought after blowing the lead that they did and collapsing the way that they did against the Texans, there was a chance that the Jaguars could just get wiped off the map by the Chargers. But, of course, in true Chargers fashion, they don't show up, which they are prone to do. And the Jags completely smack them 35-6 to bounce back. And then, the Texans, who I think a lot of folks have written off, I'm not dumb enough to do that because they've got that great defense. And I think they have a great head coach and a quarterback that they can trust in C.J. Stroud once he gets back and gets healthy. But they snuck through I don't want to say a tough test in Nashville. The Titans are probably the league's worst team pound for pound. But a division game on the road where you've got a backup quarterback, that's a difficult situation, and they won, so they both inched closer in the AFC South race. But to me, Zach, the division race I feel a lot more confident about than, say, the 1 seed because of the closing schedule. It's going to be awfully tough for them. New England's got a kindergarten schedule the rest of the way, right? I think it's going to be awfully tough for them to get to 1 or maybe even 2. But I still feel pretty firmly that it would take a real collapse for them to lose the division. I think they would have to go like 2-5 down the stretch and have the Jags or Texans go on a big closing kick here to they put themselves in a very good position in the AFC South.
Yeah, they have. But for some reason, I'm not comfortable with it. Maybe I'm scarred from covering so many collapses like you just mentioned. I was there when the Jaguars fans wore clown masks because their team was a joke. And then they rolled the Colts and knocked them out of the playoffs when they had a 99% chance to make it in. Like you said, it's going to take 2-5 or 1-4 or something down the stretch. But look at the easy games on this Colts schedule the rest of the way. Like, let me know which ones are the easy games. Yeah. They've had those. They rolled. They beat the Raiders by 1 million, the Titans a couple times. But I'm not thinking Houston's going to be easy, also because of the symbolic nature of it. That's the team that's prevented you from winning the division the last 2 years. The defense is still really good, and Stroud's not playing this week, but he'll be back. You got to go to Jacksonville, which they haven't won in Jacksonville since the beginning of time. Yeah, that's a real thing. Jags are playing well. That was the worst loss of the Jim Harbaugh era in LA, too. So that was significant as well. And then you got to go to Seattle, which has a menacing, fast, tough defense with a tough defensive line. And then the home Monday nighter against San Francisco. And like you said, San Francisco, I mean, it was an injury ward. They were like the Indiana Pacers early in the season. They're starting to get guys back. Brock Purdy's back. They looked really good on Sunday as well. So, I mean, this is going to be a death march to the end of the season for the Colts. Maybe the 1 seed is just going to be too tough because, like you said, the cupcake schedule of the New England Patriots. But it's not going to be easy to win the AFC South either because of the way they have this back-end loaded schedule.
Yeah, and you think about how critical now, and I think we knew at the time, but even especially in hindsight with the way that things have shaken out since then, the surviving in overtime over the Falcons. If they would have lost that game, then suddenly the Jags are one back
and sneaking that one over the Broncos in week 2.
That one is going to pay potentially dividends for tiebreakers and things like that coming up here. But while we're sort of on the topic of the Colts and concerns, not just the schedule, but just kind of moving forward here, another thing that sticks out to me, if we're being pessimistic, it is 40 degrees and raining right now, so I guess it's kind of a gloomy day. If we are going to be gloomy about the Colts, I just think that Buckner injury, Zach, it is super critical. I know he's not a quarterback. I know he doesn't play a impact position, but DeForest Buckner is an impact player, and everything that he does, like the tentacles of that reach throughout the locker room. And I think pound for pound, he is the Colts' most important player. I honestly do. And to not have him for a couple of games and for this tough stretch here, they can't get him back until the Seattle game at the earliest, I think is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. I would disagree. I think Jonathan Taylor is their most important player. Maybe the quarterback. But I do not want to diminish the impact of DeForest Buckner. I thought he was having his best season, and that's saying something for a guy that's been all-pro. Was literally the best defensive tackle in the league, not named Aaron Donald when he got here. He's been a stud ever since. And the other layer to this is anytime I hear, as a former beat reporter, back or neck, I immediately get pessimistic to keep with the trend of what we're talking about today. That's scary. This was not just an injury. This was a setback. A setback was what really makes you worry. That line is not the same without him. That's one of the reasons why you're really thankful Sauce Gardner's here. And that sounds a little bit strange, but think about it. The back end is going to help the pass rush. The pass rush helps the back end, but you were just dropping bodies on the back end with all the injuries to the secondary. So having Sauce out there is going to help that defensive line. But again, that's Chris Ballard's baby, that defensive line. He is obsessed with that unit. I would say it's good, not great. Other days it's disappointing, but without Buckner, it does not have a chance to be great. They need to get him back if they're going to do anything special late December and into January.
Yeah, and you talk about kind of the red flag injuries. Charvarius Ward with 2 concussions in 7 weeks. I mean, that's another big red flag. It's one thing to be coming back from an elbow or an ankle or a shoulder. It's another thing to have a brain injury or have to go to Panama to get stem cell treatment for something. That raises some red flags there. But you're right. I mean, getting Mooney Ward back, I think, is going to change the dynamic for the defense. But Buckner is a guy that we kind of saw it in the Chargers game when somebody had to take over and stop that from becoming a collapse. He was the one that sort of pushed everybody out of the way and took it over because Pay and Latu certainly couldn't. And I think they're going to miss having a guy like that right in the middle and in the teeth of their defense. And then the other thing, 2 games is not a large sample size. And I think there was naturally going to be some regression for the Colts offense. They weren't going to be the 2007 Patriots, right? I think we sort of knew that. But the last 2 games with, Daniel Jones playing arguably his 2 worst games and the offensive line and the protection issues where they have 12 sacks, I think, given up by the Steelers and Falcons. Is that a concern for you? Or is that just it was just the personnel, whatever, had 2 bad games, move on from it, and they'll be fine?
I might be alone in this opinion. I'm not overly worried about Daniel Jones. Yeah. Now, he's not going to play like Peyton Manning in 2004 the rest of the season. I think everybody in this town knows that. I think the Colts know that. I didn't think he played that bad in Pittsburgh. And maybe I sound like an idiot right now, but I know there were 5 turnovers. A couple of them were on him. But you need to see the game. You need to see the context. A couple of them were on the offensive line, and they missed blocks, and he was put into really bad situations. That is just kind of a wipe the tape game and move on. I didn't really take a whole lot from that. The Falcons game was a little bit different, but again, he still threw for like 340 yards against Pittsburgh, and that's not easy to do against that defense. And the Falcons game, he made the plays late, but I don't think this is a team that's going to be carried by its quarterback, and it never was. Maybe against the Titans and the Raiders early in the season, but the MVP of this team, the backbone of this team, needs to be 28, Jonathan Taylor. And that goes to what you said a minute ago. The real concern I have has been the inconsistent play up front, because at times the offensive line looks amazing and there's huge holes for Jonathan Taylor, and you give Daniel Jones time to throw, he's going to carve you up.
Yep.
If you don't, he's going to regress to the bad version of Daniel Jones that we all kind of fear seeing the rest of the way. I think you're going to get a roller coaster the rest of the way. You're going to get good games and bad games, but these defenses are no joke. I mean, Seattle is going to be tough.
And it's relative to, the fact that we are saying, I think I'm going off the top of my head, Barry, but I think Jones against Atlanta was 19 of 25 for 255, a touchdown and a pick, and he led the game-tying and game-winning drives, right?
Yeah.
The fact that that is a bad game.
That's a good place to be.
Jones,
that's
right?
a really good place to be in mid-November.
Floor. That's a great floor for him, and I think it's worth reminding folks of where you were thinking about Daniel Jones in August compared to where we are now in November, late November, thinking about Daniel Jones. And I still think overall his floor has been much higher than I thought it was going to be, at least until this point. But you're right. The consistency for the offensive line and, in some possessions, it just all goes to hell. And then some possessions, they just kind of march right down the field, and you never really know, I think, what you're going to get. You're not getting that sort of consistency that you saw early in the season. But then again, Zach, as you mentioned, this kind of goes with the level of opponent ramping up here too. Like, there are no Raiders, there are no Dolphins, there are no Titans, unfortunately, that are left on the schedule here. And I think that's going to be reflected in the actual results as far as the numbers and things like that and the efficiency of this offense overall. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Now you're covering the NFL for The Athletic, so I know you talk to national people as well. We've seen some real uneven quarterback play. Like, there are some guys, Matthew Stafford, Drake May, that are in that conversation. Sam Darnold maybe was until he threw 4 picks this past week. is this just the perfect recipe for what's become a quarterback award for Taylor to kind of, I don't want to say sneak into the conversation. He's forcing his way into the conversation because he's been that good.
Yeah, you have to have a year where the quarterbacks are not great. What happened last year, right? Saquon ran for 2,000 yards, was absolutely the best player in football, the most valuable player as well. And this was a two-horse race, between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And Saquon didn't have a chance to win MVP. I think this year might be a little bit different because, like you said, the best quarterback right now is probably Matthew Stafford. But he had an average day this week in their win against the Seahawks, and they only won because the defense picked off Sam Darnold 4 times. I do think the door is more open this year than it has been in the past. I've been on record saying this. I hate that it's a quarterback-only award. This should go to the best player on the best team, the most valuable player in football. For my money right now, that's Jonathan Taylor. I don't think the Colts are where they are without him. And I think he's the best player. Let's just go back to the eye test, right? Like when you guys watch games at home on Sundays and we're at the stadium, no one is doing what Jonathan Taylor is doing. No one gets more yards that are simply not there than Jonathan Taylor. I never thought I'd see him play better than he did in 21, but he's doing it right now, and I think he's in the MVP conversation. I think he's leading it, and I hate that it's only a quarterback award.
Yeah, and what surprises me about his season is that it's not just, in 21, he was just the workhorse running back and the do-everything guy for them but just as a runner. And in this, it feels like pass protection-wise, I know he had kind of a whiff in the Atlanta game. I remember on one play on a sack. But for the most part, pass blocking-wise, he's been much better. And he just feels like he's been more involved in their overall success than just being a runner. He's making an impact getting 15 carries. And you wouldn't have said that in 21 when they had to hand it to him 25, 26 times because they were
their quarterback in 21.
He was definitely afraid of what was going to happen with the guy
problem.
They had under center. Exactly. They have Daniel Jones now and much more stability at that spot. But I think we all in this town have been Jonathan Taylor appreciators, but I don't know if I realized he had this second gear, if you will. Like he has played at even he was here, right, a really high level already, and he's topped that this year.
And the other thing, and I want to get your opinion on this, is you don't often see it where a guy has an absolute banner season, which he did. He was unbelievable in 21. Broke Edgerrin James' single-season record in 16 games, not 17, and then had 2 or 3 mediocre, for him, years, and then they come back to that mountain they were at. You don't see that break in between 2 stellar seasons. And the other thing that I thought of watching the game Sunday when they were in Berlin was, is he in the conversation for the greatest Colts running back of all time? Because that for a long time, that's a really high bar to clear. But when you pass Edgerrin James in total touchdowns, and Edgerrin's career was really fairly short compared to most players and how long they play for this team. Edgerrin was here from 99 to 2005, and that's it. And Jonathan Taylor's right up there right now, and I think it's time to really start looking at him in the same way we look at Edgerrin James.
Yeah, and it's a tough context to evaluate, right? Because, and this is not to discredit Edgerrin James, but he was airdropped into an offense that was already ready, built, and stable, and had Tom Moore, and it didn't have all these changes. I mean, think about all the changes that Jonathan Taylor has had to undergo
you could write a book about
during his career. Not just quarterbacks, but coordinators and coaches and and everything like that. He did not enjoy the stability that Edgerrin James did. But you're right. I mean, when you look at Eric Dickerson and Marshall Faulk, I mean, you're talking about the top 10 across the board.
And their greatest moments weren't as Colts. But,
of course.
But still, there have been some great names to come through here.
Yeah, and I think if we're just talking individual seasons, if anything close to this pace keeps up, clearly this is the greatest running back season in Colts history.
I think Edgerrin would tell you that too.
Yeah, but I think when it's all said and done, if Taylor keeps going the way that he's going, even if this is the peak that we're seeing right here, if you're assuming, God forbid, injuries and things like that, consistent production for the next couple of years throughout the contract that he recently signed, I think undoubtedly he'll end up being the Colts' greatest running back ever. No question about that. We got our Hoagies and Hops, Hoagie and Hero of the Week. That's really why Zach is here. It's not to hang out with me. It's to eat cheesesteaks. We're going to come back with that when we return. Also, some talk on college football. And I know Vince doesn't want us to get into this, and he might pull the plug on the entire show. We got to talk about this Pacers disaster start to the season. Just disaster ball for the blue and gold. It's Hoagies and Hops brought to you by it's Corey and Schultz brought to you by Bailey and Wood Financial Group here at Hoagies and Hops Chili Water Tap Room. Zach Keefer filling in for Jake Query. Don't go anywhere. We're back next right here on the ISC Sports Network.
Nice snap.
Mortgage is a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Hey, AC.
Nice snap.
Mortgage is a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back, Corey and Schultz, presented by Bailey and Wood Financial Group. Zach Keefer enjoying the spoils of being a fill-in host here on the show. Besides the massive check that we cut for him at the end of the show, he also gets to have a Hoagies and Hops cheesesteak. Let's get to our Hoagie and Hero of the Week. Let's start actually with our Chili Water Brew of the Week, too. This is our Chili Water Built to Last, one of their core beers, a great German Pilsner. This is actually a really good, I know you're not thinking about this right now in November, 40 and rain, but I know you're an Indianapolis 500 fan, Zach. This is a great track beer.
Absolutely. Is there any beer that's not a great track beer?
Well, yeah, that's actually a really good point. But this especially, if you're not packing this in your track cooler coming up in a couple of months here in the spring when you're going to the 500, you got to do that.
This is my go-to when I come here as well.
And you can always get it. It's always on tap, one of the core beers here, and like the cans that are in the fridge over here in the Chili Water Tap Room, 42nd Boulevard. And we got the star of the show here, the cheesesteak. This is just the OG right here, OG. So ribeye, whiz. Zach asked for without onions. I usually like with onions. But on the Licio's bread, soft from South Jersey, shipped in. Absolutely fantastic, delicious.
As someone who has spent a good amount of time in Philly and hit all the major spots out there where the cheesesteaks are king, this is as good as I've gotten outside of Philly. I mean, it's right up there with them. It is tremendous.
It takes you right back there for sure. And that's what's so cool about this place, with Christina being a Pottstown native, bringing a little bit of Philadelphia right here to Midtown Indianapolis. So our hero of the week, we this is generally the best Colts player from the game that just played, right? But because they're coming off a bye week, we had to branch out a little bit. And I was kind of looking around. I always try to find a local tie-in with the hero of the week. So I like it to be an Indiana team, unless it's like, I mean, our hero of the week a couple weeks ago. Remember when Shohei Ohtani had that game where he hit like
hard to go against the best baseball game played of all time.
Yeah. I had like 8 shutout innings or whatever he had. I gave it a Trey Kaufman-Renn of Purdue. For as much love as Braden Smith gets, here's a guy that I think should also be on your National Player of the Year radar. I think he's that good. And he missed the first 2 games. He had this hip issue, and he comes back, and Purdue's playing their first real test of the season. They go to Tuscaloosa, take on a top 10 Alabama team who went to the Garden and completely smacked St. John's, who's the favorite in the Big East, right? And TKR comes in, and he just dominates. 19 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists in that win. Followed it up with 17 and 15 against Akron, who's one of the MAC favorites on Sunday night. Kind of a quiet dude. I think a lot of Purdue's guys are kind of quiet. That's kind of a staple of their program. They let their game do the talking. But, here's a guy, Zach, that kind of bided his time behind Zach Edey. He's become another one of Matt Painter's development success stories, I think.
From my wife's hometown, Sellersburg, Indiana.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Trivia spot.
Yeah.
He epitomizes Purdue in that they get guys that do not leave in 1 or 2 years, that get better every year. What a concept, right, in college basketball these days, where you actually develop every year. He was not a star when he arrived in terms of playing behind Edey. And all I hear about is Braden Smith and the National Player of the Year and how he's living up to that hype. But Purdue just churns out successful seasons, and they do it because of guys like this.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good player. It's Silver Creek, right?
Silver
That's
Creek
high school. Yeah,
really good player in high school.
Really good player there, and Indiana All-Star and the whole deal. But I remember watching him and Caleb First, who were then in the same class together, and I was like, I don't know, I think I actually like First more. And both ended up at Purdue, but First was strictly a role player and not close to an all-conference player. No offense to Caleb, he had a nice 4 years there. But Kaufman-Renn has become not only an all Big Ten level player, but an All-America capable player as well. And, Zach, I know you've got IU ties and IU alum as well. So far, so good for Darren DeVries and his team, too.
They look great.
Yeah.
They look different. They look different in a lot of ways. They're spreading the ball around. They're scoring. It's a completely different offense. And I know the IU fans that were very fatigued with Mike Woodson's slow post, whatever you want to call it, game. And he was so stubborn about that. This feels like a new era. It feels like a completely different type of offense. It's been fun. We'll see what they can do over the next couple of months. But did Scott Dolson go like 2 for 2 on the 2 biggest hires in his in his athletic department.
I mean, we're still obviously 4 games in and very
We're
early,
early,
but yeah,
but
it looks like
he could be on an all-time heater.
it looks like the pieces fit too, which is something that Indiana's had a problem with that for years.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes back. That's a 21st century problem for Indiana basketball.
25 years.
But certainly with Woodson and Archie Miller, like all the pieces individually were decorated and all of that, but then you throw them all out together and it was like everybody was operating for themselves, it felt like. Like there was no connective tissue between Renew and Mbako and all these and Galloway and all these guys that they've had recently, where all those guys were individual talents. But these pieces feel like with DeVries and Wilkerson and guys like that, they feel like they fit together a little bit better. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There's a lot more synergy now. And it's why it's so frustrating when you have a player like Trace Jackson-Davis, one of the greatest players in program history, and then what happens in the second round of the tournament? You get beat by a team that you just described, right? A Miami team that plays together. So maybe IU could start to do that under the new coach.
Yeah, and it's sad to think that really in the post-Crean era, getting run off the floor by Miami was probably the high point of the last 9
That's really
seasons.
sad.
I mean,
That's really sad.
It's, not fun to talk about there. Let's talk about college football. That's a little bit more fun to talk about, especially from the IU angle. Kind of a lethargic first half, 10-7 at halftime, but then they woke up in the second half and ran past Wisconsin. They also opened up the Fernando Mendoza Heisman campaign officially. I mean, it was already rolling, right? I mean, he's been a Heisman favorite for weeks now. But the campaign, the Heisman Mendoza is behind it. It's just, Zach, you and I both went to school there, so we know what it was like, low points, 1-win seasons and things like that. It is still a bit surreal to see everything that has happened here in such a short time with IU football. But I don't want to make it into like the cutesy sort of Cinderella story that it was last year. I mean, this is legitimate and real. I think the difference between this year and last year is that now it feels like, okay, we're past the other shoe dropping. This is really happening now for IU.
It's not just a fun story. They're just a really good team with a really good coach. And the interesting thing you're seeing develop over the second half of the season is, there's been some lethargic first halves where you're like, oh, is this the day they're going to lose? Maryland wasn't great early on. Penn State took to the very end and a heroic catch. Even Wisconsin, 10-7 on Saturday. The good teams over time are going to wear you down. Cignetti's been a great second half coach. The offensive line takes control. They run these teams off the field in the second half. Penn State was a little bit different. They needed that last-second catch. Yeah. But if you're looking ahead, and I'm allowed to look ahead, you got Purdue, and then you move on to the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State's got the best defense in football. Indiana's got the best quarterback in football. And I think Indiana will be, they will be the underdog in this game. And I think Ohio State wins. But Mendoza, 2 incompletions and 4 touchdowns on Saturday. I'm seeing NFL throws from him every week. There's a chance. There's a chance they keep this close, and maybe Mendoza makes a play or two late. They got to get Surratt back, but I like the receivers as well, and Becker has really stepped up.
Oh, I think Indiana absolutely has a chance against Ohio State. I think people are right to default to there just seems to be like this level, like a good example here is those Notre Dame teams under Brian Kelly, and sorry, Brant, for bringing this up, where Notre Dame could get up to the top of that second level, but there's that Alabama, Georgia, Clemson tier, and Ohio State it's just so difficult to crack. And, Oregon is a really good team, but they're not on that tier of team, and it just feels like sometimes Ohio State from a talent standpoint is just kind of on a tier all to themselves. But does Indiana have a chance to win that game? Absolutely they do. And, this was a quarterback class going into the year that people were really excited about. And this season, a lot of those guys have fallen completely off. Whereas, if anything, I think Mendoza has been maybe even better than people thought, or at least performed to expectations.
It's hard to remember the fact that he's only been on campus for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, it feels like he's been there forever.
And the reality is, you go back to Ohio State last year. Ohio State won the game against Indiana convincingly, but that game turned on a fumbled punt, if I'm not mistaken, in the rain, and it was fairly tight to that point. So I don't think Indiana's going to go into this game super intimidated or anything like that. And the other reality is, I'm talking to some friends about, the game's going to be at Lucas Oil. Ohio State is certainly going to be there, right? Course. Those Buckeyes fans.
They don't have jobs in the fall.
I've covered like the NFL Combine and felt like it was an Ohio State home game. But it might be the biggest Indiana football game I can think of in 20 years. Now, I know the playoff last year at Notre Dame was a big one, but in Indianapolis with a chance to get the number 1 seed for the playoff, that is absurd what I just said. So Mendoza against that defense might be the matchup of the year. You thought it was going to be Arch Manning against Ohio State. Well, they controlled that game very well early in August, but this is going to be fun, and Mendoza is on a heater right now.
Because you can win something tangible, a Big Ten championship, and because they're already assured of making the playoff because they're going to beat Purdue.
It's got a different vibe.
I think it's it's bigger than the Notre Dame game. Because even if let's say hypothetically they had beaten Notre Dame, what's your reward for that? You just move on to the next round of the playoff, right? You're not taking home a trophy or anything.
Right.
I think with this, the fact that it's for the league championship, which they haven't done since the Rose Bowl season, I think it's the biggest game in IU's modern history.
It would be very symbolic, and I don't want to lean on that phrase too much, but it would tell the nation something. Yeah. It would tell the nation something that this is no joke, that what we started this conversation with. This team is not just a storybook. It's not just a cute little story. It's not just a one-year turnaround. They might be among the best teams in college football moving forward, not just this season.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that they've been able to sustain it again. We just mentioned Notre Dame. They rolled over Pitt in likely their final challenge of the regular season. That was a game that really wasn't even as close as the final score indicated. Pat Narduzzi was calling timeouts with like 10 seconds left. Get in the end zone one more time, which is fine. That's his prerogative. Notre Dame's got Syracuse with a freshman walk-on quarterback this week, and then they have Stanford and your pal Andrew Luck coming up in the final week of the season. But I think at 10-2, Notre Dame is going to be in the playoff, especially considering that there will be more losses to come here. Probably even stuff that happens that we're not expecting to happen. I mean, you look at South Carolina almost beating Texas A&M. I mean, weird stuff happens a lot of the time.
Yeah, really good job from Marcus Freeman. Remember, they had that 0-2 start, all the talk about can they get back to the playoff. They've done this before where they've had early stumbles. But with Jeremiah Love, if that guy gets hot in the playoff, that could be a team that doesn't just make the playoff. They could upset some higher-ranked teams. And let's just hope the Hoosiers avoid the Irish this year in the first round.
I don't want to see a repeat game. Like I want to see Indiana play, like Georgia or something. You know what I mean? Like that. I know locally it was a big deal, and I actually went to the game, and the atmosphere was incredible. The IU Notre Dame game was a lot of fun, and it was the first playoff game, so they get to say that they played
on
the first
campus
in this new format. But part of me was kind of disappointed that you didn't get, what I wanted to see was more games like Ohio State, Tennessee, because it's the novelty of Tennessee having to go to Columbus, Ohio in December and play a game, as opposed to two, Indiana teams playing each other. But we'll see. I mean, I think Notre Dame would be thrilled just to be in the playoff, and I think Indiana is going to be in a position where if they don't have, if they don't beat Ohio State and have the bye, they're going to end up being a high seed because that's how people feel about them. I mean, and that's, I think, where they deserve to be. And then, we don't need to talk about Purdue football. Blown out in Seattle, they're hurtling towards a 2-10 season, and things are depressing and awful. And that's it. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at the 15 seconds there. Speaking of depressing and awful, I'm sorry, Vince. Pacers are now 1-13 after losing to the Pistons last night. The suddenly resurgent Pistons. My 8-year-old. Now, I don't know if your girls have gotten into sports at all. My 8-year-old has been into the NBA this is his third season. And the first season, the Pistons were still terrible. So he's like wrapping his brain around the fact that, no, actually, with Cade and everything else, the Pistons are really good. He's like, Dad, the Pistons are, 12-2 or whatever they are. 8 straight games with 8 straight losses, I should say. 6 straight for the Pacers, coming by at least double digits. Look, Zach, they're trotting out it's not the Mad Ants anymore, right? It's the Noblesville Boom.
Correct.
They're trotting out a boom level lineup here with guys that, Tony Bradley and things like that, guys that would normally never play major minutes unless you were really in a pinch, and the Pacers are in a pinch. So I don't want to give them a blanket excuse because of the injuries, but if you're going to give up, 130 points a game, that's not acceptable to me. Not for a Rick Carlisle-led team, right? That smacks against everything that he's been in his Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, they've fought defensive lapses before, even when they had their pieces together. But now, without Tyrese and without sort of the backbone of that defensive middle in Miles Turner, they just can't stop anybody. And they've got an injury ward, and Ben Mathurin's coming back, but Neesmith's gone. And like you said, it is not an NBA roster right now. And I just feel like psychologically they're still not over the hump from what happened at the end of last season. And it's crazy to think it's November 16th or 17th, and 3 months ago this was the team that was the toast of the town.
Yeah.
And then it all changed, and it just feels like they missed their chance. We'll see what happens in the future, but I didn't see 1-13 for this team.
I still think when Halliburton gets back, I still think that the Pacers can do what you were expecting them to do and get back on this trajectory that we were thinking that they were on. That said, I think, our memories are very short term. We live very much in the now as sports fans are concerned. And now that the Colts are good again and all of that, I'm not saying that those two are fighting against one another. I think in a lot of ways the Colts and Pacers organizations embrace each other, and that's nice that they do that. But they're just kind of out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I tuned in, Zach, and I watched 2 minutes last night, and the Pacers didn't score, and Detroit rattled off 11 straight, and they pushed their lead to 22, and that was the second quarter. I did not tune back in the entire night. And it's just they're out of sight, out of mind. They're the Pacers from 3-4 years ago again.
It's sad.
Yeah, unless you happen to stumble upon the game or there is literally nothing else, your wife's asleep or whatever else, and you're just laying under a blanket with your dog, and you're just like, all right, fine, I'll flip it on. Unless you're doing that, I mean, you're not tuning in to watch a 1-13 basketball team. That's not appointment viewing anymore, and it stinks.
You mentioned your 8-year-old rooting for the Pistons. My 7-year-old has not gotten over Game 7, and I don't think she ever will because she's still new to the fandom. She's still new to understanding your team doesn't always win, and you sometimes lose, and she has a long way to go in understanding Indiana sports because rarely do our teams host championships, but trying to explain to her why he got hurt at that moment has been very difficult in our house. I'm sure a lot of you out there can commiserate. It's just sad because I will put up the 2024-2025 Pacers as among my favorite teams this town's ever had, regardless of whatever banner they did not hang up.
This is completely subjective, but I think it was the best, and I know they didn't win the title. It was the best postseason run in the 20 years that I've been in Indianapolis, including the 06 Colts. I just think I just think people were activated in a way that they've never been activated before about any team, and that includes the Butler runs. That includes, I mean, there've been some good stuff.
That's some good competition.
Yeah, there's been some good stuff in the 20 years
Purdue
here.
Purdue made a championship game. The Colts have made runs.
I just think it was unbelievable where it was, and it was the way that they won those games too. Cavs game 1, Knicks game 1, and really all the game
Thunder game 1
from all this. Yeah, I mean it's incredible what they were able to do. But Pascal Siakam kind of calling them out for not playing as hard as they could. I mean that's a big red flag for me. And you feel for those guys, right? Like Nesmith and Nembhard and Siakam, like they're not there to tank. They don't want to do that. They put in the blood and sweat to build this thing up, and it's frustrating for them to have to wait. So I'm bummed about it. But they just got Ben Mathurin back. I mean, Aaron Nesmith's going to miss another month. They've had 10 different lineups in their first 14 games. At some point, Zach, it's just going to be too far gone. And maybe this is for the best. I mean, we talked about it off the air. Maybe this is the Spurs situation in 97 again, where David Robinson, I think, played 5 games. And they parlayed that into a 20-win season and got the number 1 pick, and it was Duncan. I don't know if there's a generational level talent in this class, but still, to have the number 1 pick, certainly a good thing. Something the Pacers, not only have the Pacers, one of my favorite trivia questions, not only or sound bites. Pacers have not only never had the number 1 pick, they have never had a number 1 overall pick on their roster. They're the only NBA team that has never rostered a number 1 overall pick. Isn't that crazy?
So this was lost in the final shuffle, but in mid-June, Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan traded to get their number 1 pick back, which turns out to be an absolutely genius move right now.
Who would have known?
And then secondly, I wrote this several times in the finals. I mean, they haven't had a top 5 pick since like the 80s.
Yeah.
Since before Reggie Miller was drafted 10th overall or 7th overall or whatever it was. This is uncharted territory. Now, the pain is real right now, and the pain is going to be real through March and April. And it's a good draft class. I don't think there's a Tim Duncan, but it's a very good draft class. And if that's the spoil, if that's the reward you get at the end of this season, that could help because Tyrese is coming back, and things are not just going to go back to the way they were before he got hurt.
No.
You're going to have to work your way to get back there. If you've got this young top 3 draft pick, that will certainly help.
Yeah, the mountain is formidable. You're still going to have to climb that thing back up, even when Halliburton comes back. It's not just going to switch overnight. No doubt about it. Corey and Schultz brought to you by our friends at Bailey & Wood Financial Group, 855-350-HOME, BAWFG.com for our friends at Bailey & Wood. Whether you're trying to get pre-approved for a home mortgage or you're looking to refi, I know rates have ticked down a little bit. Mike Wood and his team will give you 5-star customer service. They have 18, 19, I think they might be up to 20 Indiana branch locations now. If you like to just walk in and talk to somebody, They're all very much involved in the community, which we've talked about a lot on this show, especially on the South Side, which is their home base down there in Whiteland and Franklin. But 855-350-HOME, BAWFG.com. Zach, you just went through the home buying process. You know it can be a hassle. Let Mike Wood and his team take that portion of the hassle out of it for you at Bailey & Wood Financial Group, BAWFG.com. We come back with Zach. We'll have our quick hits, including the same Monon Bell champion, 4 straight times now. How cool would that be to be a senior at DePaul and get to say that you won the bell every single time that you played it? And also some Indianapolis-related NFL injury news that I'm just really bummed about. Plus our IU Indy Jags report and Chateau Kitchen's Buy It or Bold Believe. Still plenty to get to here. Don't go anywhere. We are on Corey and Schultz here at the Hoagies and Hops and Chili Water Tap Room, 42nd and Boulevard on ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our
In between cheesesteak bites here at Hoagies and Hops, Chili Water Tap Room, 42nd and Boulevard is Query and Schultz. Thanks so much for joining us alongside Zach Keefer filling in for Jay Query. I'm Derek Schultz. Greg Rakestraw gave us an interesting trivia bite, as he normally does, because Greg knows everything about anything. The 1996-97 Spurs, so that 20-win season, their leading scorer, because David Robinson was out, Sean Elliott missed half the season. I mean, who else? Like Vinny Del Negro, but he was never known for scoring. I'm trying to think of some of their Spurs that were on that team.
I mean, they might have had Dennis Rodman? No, he would have been with the Bulls by then.
Yeah, he would, because he would have been on the earlier teams, right? But that was when he first started coloring his hair and all that with San Antonio. Dominique Wilkins was the leading scorer. I want to see if you back me up on this, Zach, because you've been, you're a national writer. You've been with heavy hitters and legends of not only sports, but of like American pop culture and life. One of the coolest moments for me was we had Dominique Wilkins was in town for Black Expo, and he was doing something about diabetes, I think, and awareness and things like that. And we set up a Nerf hoop in the old WNDE studio, and I did dunks in front of Dominique Wilkins, and while Jake was on the air, and he would grade the dunks. And it's one of my all-time favorite moments. And what I always tell people, people are like, oh, is it cool that you got to interview like Andrew Luck and Tyrese Halliburton? I'm like, well, no, I'm older than those guys.
Right.
The cool people to talk to are the people that you grew up watching. Like Dominique Wilkins coming in studio, I don't think I slept the night before. I was so excited about it because I thought to myself, being 9 years old and seeing the Hawks play the Celtics in the playoffs and Dominique Wilkins, you know what I mean? I think, I'm sure for you, probably talking to somebody like Troy Aikman is a much bigger deal than talking to somebody like Andrew Luck.
Yeah, Troy Aikman.
Even though they're both a big deal.
It's the first quarterback I remember watching.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the Super Bowl was until I knew what Troy Aikman and the Cowboys were doing in the early 90s. And to piggyback off your story, and this is local, I was once sort of arguing with Peyton Manning about quarterback play. I wrote this big story this summer about why young quarterbacks fail so often in the league. And I asked every quarterback I could find, Troy Aikman, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, etc. But Peyton is going through his early years and explaining to me what happened in one particular game, and I actually had to correct him on what happened in the game, and I felt like it was a huge win for me because, one, Peyton remembers everything, and two, I'm actually kind of telling him something about his own career that he forgot. And after I got off the call, I was like, I just told Peyton Manning something he didn't know about his own career. I felt like it was a huge victory for me because, again, that's the quarterback that made me love football. I think everyone probably has a football player that made them love football. For me, it was 18, and probably a lot of people in this town, but that was not a moment that passed me by, and I didn't realize how freaking cool it was.
Yeah, it is neat for sure. Let's get to our quick hits. As I mentioned, DePaul scores a 4th straight Monon Bell game. You watched it right here on ISC Sports Network. Congrats to Brett Dietz and the Tigers. Their senior class swept the Bell 41-20 in Crawfordsville. 4 straight over their rival Wabash, and at 9-1, they get to keep playing. They're heading to the Division III playoffs as an at-large. It's their 5th straight postseason berth. So congratulations to DePaul. I've always had, and I know people on both sides of the ledger. I have Wabash friends, I have DePaul friends, but I have more DePaul people in my life, so I've always sort of leaned towards them. But have you ever done a Bell game? I mean, it's a ton of fun. It's an incredible atmosphere. It's definitely one of those Indiana sports bucket list items.
It's on my bucket list. I've never done it, but I respect the heck out of how much those teams hate each other and how much that game means to them.
And the fans, right? And the loves. It's awesome. Some NFL injury news. I'm just super bummed about this. Did you see the Juju Brents foot injury? He's going to have surgery, and it felt like he had finally found his, no pun intended, footing in Miami And, here's the guy that just kind of keeps getting hurt. And then, and Michael Penix too, man. I saw, Brant from the ISC team showed this to me earlier. I think in 9 seasons, counting college football, this is the 5th time that Michael Penix has suffered a season ender. What looks like a season ender. Okay, it's not out the window completely. He's getting a second opinion, but it looks like an ACL issue that's going to cost him the rest of 2020.
And that's not a heavy injury for a quarterback. And the fact that he's had it this many times is just it's just devastating. But they do have a $40 million a year backup in Kirk Cousins, so not the worst thing to turn to.
You got a vet to turn to. And then James Franklin off to Virginia Tech. How about, regardless how you feel about James Franklin, good for Virginia Tech because this is a very crowded head coaching market. So to just come out there and pluck James Franklin like that, I think that makes them look good after, they've been off the radar for a long time. And they negotiated his buyout down to $9 million. But, Virginia Tech to me, Zach's one of those teams that they're kind of like the Pacers in a way that they've very rarely been bad. They've always been at least okay and competitive. And even though they haven't really bottomed out, they've not been to the level that they were with Frank Beamer or certainly like, the Michael Vick team that went to the national championship game. But man, 9-10 wins in the ACC shouldn't be that hard. That league stinks. It's not like you're playing Alabama and Tennessee and all those teams.
Right. And then if you pivot it, like where does LSU go and where does Florida go now that James Franklin's off the table?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, besides the fact that you're going to go to Lane Kiffin and say, what do you want? How much do you want?
What a weird – I don't know if I ever remember a team giving their own head coach a deadline to decide whether he was going to go somewhere, at least publicly. Maybe that has happened behind closed doors, but the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss situation is definitely a weird one. We talked about how Indiana, down at Bloomington, off to a great start in men's basketball. IU Indy off to a good start as well. Certainly stylistically, they've been very fun to watch, but they got their first 2 wins of the season last week. It's time for our IU Indy Jags report, and let's lead with the men's basketball team. The Jags not only won against IU Columbus, they broke an attendance record in the process. They drew 5,568 fans, a majority of the crowd under the age of 10 because they had school kids in, and IU Indy won emphatically in front of all those kids, 121-77. And then they went to Eastern Michigan and secured their first road win of the year, beating the Eagles 90-83. Congratulations to McGuire Mitchell, the Horizon League Freshman of the Week, 19 points, led 4 Jags in double figures against IU Columbus and IU Indy on the road this week. They go to Charleston Southern. That game's actually tied. It's going on while you're watching this right now if you're watching the live broadcast. And then they go to Colorado Springs to take on Alabama State on Friday and play Air Force on Sunday. So the Jags 2-3 so far, but on a 2-game winning streak as they head into the rest of their slate this week. On the women's side of things, they had 1 game last week, and it was a W. They beat Bradley 75-67 over the Braves. They're now 2-2 on the season. Jags led by Nevia Foster. She had 28 points. Olivia Smith had 14. Jags on the road this week facing UE on Thursday, and then they head to Marshall to take on the Thundering Herd on Sunday down there in Huntington. Volleyball, IU Indy Volleyball, a tough weekend against Northern Kentucky, and a lot of teams have tough weekends against NKU. They are the Horizon League regular season champs, and IUI lost in both of those matches. They put up a fight on Senior Day, took it to 5 sets and fell just short. They travel to Northern Kentucky again this week as the Norse host the Horizon League Volleyball Championships, so be sure to tune in to cheer on the Jags. They ended the season with one of their best years to date. Grace Perica led the charge. She was first in the country in assists, and she led the Horizon League in multiple categories as well. So one of the most prominent players, not only in the league, but in the country. Finally, swimming. IU Indy men's and women's swimming and diving will host their annual House of Champions event at the beautiful Natatorium coming up on Thursday through Saturday. It's their biggest regular season meet of the year. Tickets for the event and all IU Indy home events can be bought at iuindyjags.com/tickets. You ever see, I know we're in the neighborhood now, their athletic director, Luke Bosso, you ever see him running up and down? You will if you haven't seen it yet. I know you're still kind of new to the neighborhood, but sometimes you just see celebrities just running on through. You still go on runs, right?
I was on a run a couple weeks ago, and this car pulls up to me, and it's Jake Query. So you get harassed by celebrities in our neighborhood too.
Yeah, I see Jake every once in a while. He ran the stop sign at 54th in Illinois as I was walking up to the ice cream shop up there and to Graders with my son. And so I do see Jake in the neighborhood as well, violating traffic laws and driving like the aggressive driver that he is too. We come back on the show. We're going to wrap things up with Zach, Chateau Kitchen's Buy It or Boldly So I'll give a statement. Zach and I go back and forth whether it is true or false, and we'll tie a bow on episode 262 of Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network.
Hey, AC.
Nice snap.
Mortgages in a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Hey, AC.
Nice snap.
Mortgages in a snap. Duh.
Bailey and Wood, a lending hand for Wish TV Sports.
Welcome back. Final time. Bailey Wood presents Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Thanks so much to Christina and all of our friends here at Hoagies and Hops and Chili Water Tap Room for keeping the show going from here. This is our, cheesesteak, our second month here at Hoagies and Hops and Chili Water Tap Room, and we're psyched to be here. Zach Keefer filling in for Jake Query. We were just mentioning running. I know you had participated in some like Ironman level stuff, right? Like triathlon stuff.
Not quite.
Any time for that on the calendar, or is it? I mean, you're in season right now, so I'm assuming not.
Yeah, I do a bunch of indie triathlons in the summers, but if I can plug, we've got the drumstick dash next week. Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's
Day.
right. Jake
I'll
is
see Jake
always
Query
part of
there.
that. Yep.
It's actually a great cause. It's for the homeless shelter, Wheeler Mission downtown. It's a great way to start Thanksgiving morning. You get all the calories burned before eating all the calories later in the afternoon. So hoping for good weather, but it's a tremendous day, tremendous service for the local community. And you get to see some local celebs like Jake Query. Lara Overton wins the women's race every year, so it's a blast.
Yeah, are you and Lara going to give somebody else a chance maybe to win?
I'm not planning on it. I'm planning. I've been running a lot these days. I feel like I'm in pretty good shape. So the trophy's going home with me.
How many
this year.
times have you won, like, what, 2, 3 of these things? I mean, Lara's won like 16,
Yeah, Lara
it feels
has
like,
an
right?
entire
Yeah.
side of a trophy. I don't know exactly, but my daughter, my 7-year-old, actually added it up one year and counted. So I think she said 4.
Wow.
So, per my sources close to the trophy, 4 wins.
Good for you guys, man. That's crazy. Yeah, drumstick dash is always a great event, and it's just fun. Like it's low key,
Yeah.
right? You see people
like
and families
4
together.
miles. You don't really have to kill yourself.
Much like the mini is the kickoff for the month of May, drumstick dash to me is the kickoff of the holiday season in a lot of ways. I know people talk about Circle of Lights and all that, but I think in a lot of ways it's sort of the kickoff of everything here in Indy in the holiday season. Let's get to our friends at Chateau Kitchens and Chateau Kitchens Buy It or Bull Bleep. ChateauKitchens.com, at Chateau Kitchens on Instagram and Facebook for before and after photos of their latest projects. They are in the business of in-home transformation. Stephen Moore and his team do an unbelievable job. They've done they renovated our basement. They did a kitchen for us. They did our guest bathroom. Basically, our entire home in Midtown, our 100-year-old home, has been impacted by Chateau Kitchens and their tremendous work. Don't take my word for it, though. Go to the socials, Instagram and Facebook, and see their unbelievable transformative photos, before and after pictures on their accounts at Chateau Kitchens and ChateauKitchens.com to dial them up today. Bite or Bull Bleep. So here's what we do with this, Zach. Query calls it derisively Bite or Bull Schultz, and I don't have to worry about you degrading me like that. I give a statement, and we go back and forth whether we believe it's true or false, essentially. Statement number 1, the AFC South will have multiple playoff teams. Buy it or Bull Bleep?
I'm buying it because I think the Jaguars sneak in ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
This year.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We're in a weird year, right? Because you're so used to the NFC North sending multiple teams, or the AFC North sending multiple teams.
They're only getting one.
Yeah, that's been a mess. And I know that the Bills and the Patriots are good, but the Jets and Dolphins are obviously awful, and then the Raiders are awful. I think you're probably going to get a couple from the West. So you got the Broncos and
But
the
I'm
Chargers.
not so sure. The Chargers are falling apart with those 2 tackles out. They're
true.
a good team, but I'm just like in that murderer's row of a division. I'm not that sold on the Chargers because of the injuries.
Also, the Jags, I read, while the Colts have, I think, the 4th toughest stretch remaining, the Jags have like the 2nd or 3rd easiest. So that's something else that I think could play a factor into this. I'm going to say yes because I get 2 bites at the apple because we're not even talking about Houston, but Houston still has a puncher's chance to make the playoffs too. So I think one of those 2, Houston or Jacksonville, will end up sneaking into the playoffs too. I still think the Colts are going to win the division. I still think that way.
They better for their sake.
Yeah, that would be problematic. Speaking of the Colts, statement number 2, Jonathan Taylor will be a top 3 MVP finisher. I mean, I feel pretty definitively that he's at least going to get there, right?
You have a lot of faith in the voters, my friend.
Man, 3 quarterback. I mean,
Does he play quarterback all of a sudden?
but if you're putting May and Stafford ahead of him, I mean,
He's gotta be up
maybe
there.
Allen. I mean, Allen just threw 6 touchdowns, so maybe Allen sneaks up there too.
Josh Allen just did something that only one quarterback in history has ever done. 3 touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game, 6
insane.
total. Otto Graham was the other in the 1950s. So he's ridiculous, but I mean, Jonathan Taylor's got to be top 3 in MVP voting, right? Otherwise, just get rid of the award.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like if he finishes 5th or 6th, I mean, what did Saquon finish? Did he finish 3rd, or did he finish lower than? Or do you know?
Well, he won the runaway offensive player of the year.
Sure.
But yeah,
I mean, it was Allen and Mahomes, or Allen and Jackson, right?
Yeah.
But I'm actually curious to see where Saquon finished, just because maybe that's a barometer for where
is 2,000
Taylor
yards
would
good?
be.
Yeah,
it's okay, right? Not bad. Or is 30 touchdowns, which is what he's on pace for as well. It's insane. How about this? This is a little spicy. Maybe you don't want to jinx it. A Big Ten team will win the national championship again. Buy it or boldly. It's happened 2 straight years. Michigan and Ohio State.
Oh, wouldn't 3 be fun? Because when's the last time a basketball national championship team came from the Big Ten?
Yeah, 2000, right?
That's just really
I mean, unless
sad.
you count Maryland, which I don't.
I
but,
don't, because it wasn't a Big Ten team at
and
the time.
they beat IU, and I was butthurt about it.
Right, yeah. I'm just gonna buy in and say let's do it. Ohio State, why can't Indiana win the national
It's
championship?
basically,
although Georgia scares me. They're really
sure.
good.
Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, or the field.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to.
right.
So you have the top 2 teams in there right now, at least pound for pound with what we've seen, and maybe Indiana would not be favored. Well, Alabama would be favored by Indiana on a neutral.
I don't know.
Hey,
I don't
cares?
think we know enough about the way the 12-team playoff is going to shake out because we've only had 1 year of it. Is it going to be the team that's the best all year, or is it going to be the team that kind of gets hot at the end, or that gets humbled late in the regular season, a la Ohio State last year, and then just rolls everybody in January? So I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's tough to bet against the Buckeyes. That defense is really, really good. We're going to get a look at that at Lucas Oil Stadium in a couple of weeks. But, it wouldn't stun me if Michigan gave them a game. It would not stun me. Michigan is pretty good, and they have won a lot of games in a row, and that is in the minds of every Ohio State fan out there.
And it's another chance to save their season. I mean, Michigan saved their season last year by beating Ohio State.
That's
They
a
can do it
scary
again
thing when you're
because
playing that team.
They haven't been that great. I mean, they're okay, but I don't think that Michigan team has had a great season, at least not to their standard. But yeah, I actually think I'm going to buy it just because the cannibalization of the SEC teams, but you're right, it's hard to. And the other thing is the seeding change, because last year, Penn State is in the national semifinal, but they beat like SMU and Boise to get there. It was kind of like, it didn't feel like a real path. Whereas this year, I think it's going to be much more fair, where everybody gets, Oregon won the Big Ten championship and got a worse draw than what Penn State got.
I think the SEC mystique is fading. I don't think it's so nearly as dominant as it was 10 years ago. I think the teams start to realize that. They start to play like that. They start to coach like that.
I mean, Alabama's out there losing home games. I mean, the mystique is definitely faded as well. Thanks to our fantastic ISC crew for bringing this show to you. We got Brant and Jordan in here, Vince and Charlie in the truck. Thanks to you, Zach. Thanks for coming to hang out.
This was a blast.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did it. Keep up the great work as well. You can check out The Athletic. Subscription is an absolute must if you are a sports fan, not just for Zach, but some of the best writers in the entire country as well. And Zach's got a couple of fun features coming up that he wasn't able to fully give me the 411 on, but I'm looking forward to reading those. And great to have you in Midtown. We need to get like Kelsey and Ashley and the kids together and do all of that too, but We'll do that after the season. Yeah, cheesesteaks. There we go. We'll make that happen. For Zach Keefer, I'm Derek Schultz. Jake Query returns next week. We will see you next time right here on Query and Schultz. And thanks to our sponsors. Forgot to mention Bailey Wood Financial Group, Hoagies and Hops and Chili Water Tap Room, our friends at IU Indy off to a great start in hoops, as well as Chateau Kitchens. We'll see you next time right here on ISC.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our 5-star customer service. But at our core, we're a family. Family owned, and family to our customers, staff, and our community. From charity events to recognizing hometown heroes, we prioritize giving back to our communities that have always supported our growth. So let us help you get your dream home today.